everyone. Today I'm going to talk about Mental Health Act. Okay, so what is this Mental Health Act? This is the act, or we can say certain laws, which is given by the government of India to be, followed. Okay, when we care for a psychiatric patient. Right. So, why is it important as a psychiatric nurse to know about the Mental Health Act? So, it is important for nurses to know about these acts so that we can deliver the care effectively to the mental patients, and also it will, govern us how we are supposed to move about in the care of the mentally ill clients. Right. So, what is all about this act? That is what you're going to learn today. Right. So, this Indian Mental Health Act was drafted by the Parliament in 1987, but it came into effect in all states and union territories of India in the year of 1993, April month. So this act, even though it was, drafted in the year 1987, this act came into force actually in the year 1999 because it was the application of the Act of Indian Lunacy Act of the year 1912. So it replaces the Indian Lunacy Act 1912. What are the reasons for the enactment of this law? What are the reasons for the enactment of this act, the Indian Mental Health Act? The attitude of the society towards the mentally ill has changed considerably, and it is now realized that no stigma should be attached to such illness, as it is curable practically when diagnosed at earlier stage. So earlier, how the mentally ill were treated. Okay, the mentally ill in the society, it was a stigma for the people or the relatives or the friend, right? That mentally when there is a mentally ill person at home, it is a shameful thing for them. It is a thing which is very embarrassing. So how they used to treat such kind of a mentally ill patient was they used to isolate them, they used to chain them, they used to lock them in the room and isolate them, and they used to torture them physically. So that is the thing how the clients were usually treated. But as the time went on, and there is advancement of knowledge in the field of psychiatry, and they have found that these mental disorders are also the ones which can be treated or which can be curable. So that is why the reason for the improvement or the replacement of the Indian Lunacy Act was done, and this new act, which is the Mental Health Act, was reinforced. Yes, so the attitude of the society has been changed, and now the stigma is slowly weaned off, and the society has got the knowledge that mental illness also can be cured when it is diagnosed in the earlier stages. What is the second reason why this act was implemented? The mentally ill individual should be treated like any other sick person, and the environment around them made as normal. So earlier, how this mentally ill person was treated was so indifferent, so rude, right? So cruelly they were treated. But now, as the society has got an idea, or they've enlightened about that mental illness is also like any other illness, they have to be treated in a respected way. Okay, we have to give the dignity even for the mentally ill clients, because this is also the illness of, which comes to the clients. So that is the one more reason why this Mental Health Act has been implemented. And even the environment in which the person is living, mentally ill client, even the environment which he's been living should be a normal environment, unlike how he was isolated, where he was not allowed to come out of the house or talk to his neighbors, or interact with the environment, or enjoy his timing. Unlike that, now this improvement was done so that even the environment plays an important role to bring about the change in a mentally ill patient. So that is the reason of enactment of the law. The experience of working with the Indian Lunacy Act 1912 has revealed that it has become outmoded with the rapid achievement of medical science. So as the society is growing, even the science science and technology which is growing is given an enlightenment that which the Act of Indian Lunacy Act of 1912 has to be improvised because of these reasons, and the new act, which is the Indian Mental Health Act, has been implemented in the year 1987, even though it came into actually functioning from the year 1993. Right. So the fresh legislation is made according to the new approach, which is based on the society. Now we are going to see what are the objectives of the Indian Mental Health Act. The first objective is to regulate admission into psychiatric hospital and psychiatric nursing homes. So earlier, people with mental disorders, mental illness, they were just confined to their house, or they were not allowed to come out or get treatment in various hospitals. But because of these laws and regulations what the government or parliament has passed, okay, this important objective of giving an opportunity or giving an important part of treatment of mentally ill clients in mental hospitals and nursing homes, very very important. So the admissions has to be started in the mental hospitals to deliver the care for the mentally ill clients, to protect the society from the presence of mentally ill persons. Yes, you know very well that mentally ill person is harmful or is dangerous to himself and to the society. Yes, there are times when mentally ill patients, they are neglected by the family and the relatives. They just leave the mentally ill patient out, or they just don't want to take care of such a kind of a person in the family. They just leave them abandoned. So such kind of patients, when they come in the society, they're there outside wandering, and so at times they become violent. They could harm the other people also, in spite of harming themselves. So it is very much important that this objective is to protect the society from the presence of the mentally ill patients. Yes, to protect the citizens from being detained in psychiatric hospitals or nursing home without sufficient cause. Okay, there are situations when, even though the clients who are there in the hospital, they are being treated effectively, and no more what it is necessary for them to be detained or stay back in the mental hospitals. This, at times when the family doesn't are not willing to take the family person with the mental illness back to the family. They don't want, because it is a stigma for the society. They don't want such kind of patients to their home back. They don't want to take care of them. Okay, so such time what happens, they just want to detain them in the mental hospitals. But this law this law protects this clients, that such kind of patients who are already treated or who can be managed at home can be sent. Not necessarily they have to be detained in the mental hospital lifelong. So this act gives us the idea not to detain such kind of patients, wherein it is not needed anymore for them without sufficient cause. It is not necessary that such patients should be detained permanently in the mental hospital. So it gives the mental patients the opportunity to just to be released from the mental hospitals, so that they can be taken care of. hut house. Okay. To regulate maintenance charge of psychiatric hospitals, there are times wherein, it becomes a burden for the family to, where when the mentally ill client is a main, the breadwinner of the family. So there may be financial difficulty when the person becomes mentally ill. So because of the financial burden, they may not approach the psychiatric hospital for the treatment. So in those cases, very much important that we as government to support such clients and and the family. So to regulate the charges, whatever happens, whatever the cost of expense is there for the patients, the government will take care of the charges or of the expenses for treating the mentally ill clients. So this law gives us the idea or gives us the objective of how to financially and how to regulate the financial expenses of the mentally ill clients in the psychiatric hospital. Yes, to provide facilities for establishing guardianship of mentally ill person who are incapable of managing their own affairs. So there are at times when clients who are mentally ill, they may be having properties, they may be having a lot of amount. So he is not mentally fit to take care of the properties or to manage his own affairs, right? So in those cases, the guardians, whoever the guardian of the client is, they can be given an opportunity to manage those affairs of the clients, right? To establish central and state authorities for mental health services, right? So we have got the authorities who will be taking care of the mental health service delivery. Right. To regulate powers of government for establishing, licensing and controlling psychiatric hospitals. So the government has appointed certain authorities who will be establishing and the government will be giving the license for running certain mental hospitals or nursing homes. Okay, so these are the objectives of the Mental Health Act. So moving on to the salient features of the Mental Health Act. So the Act is being divided into 10 chapters, which has got the 98 sections. So we'll see each of these chapters in detail. Okay. So chapter 1. It contains the preliminary information, some definitions which are included in this are the psychiatric hospitals or nursing homes, mentally ill person, psychiatrist, and the reception order. A psychiatric hospital is the one which has got a specialized delivery of the care for a mentally ill person. Okay, so what is mentally ill person or who is a mentally ill person? Mentally ill person is a person who requires treatment for the mental disorders apart from mental retardation. Next is a psychiatrist. Who is a psychiatrist? Psychiatrist is the one who is having a PG degree or a diploma in the field of psychiatry, who is specialized for delivering the care of mentally ill clients. The next is reception order. Reception order is the one which is given by the government, the act which is given by the government of India, which will explain about the admission and discharge of the mentally ill patients in the psychiatric hospitals. There is a replacement of the older terms which was the lunatic. So earlier the mentally ill clients were called as lunatic. The mental hospitals were called as the lunatic asylums. The mentally ill patients were termed as criminal lunatics. So these terms are being replaced by the new terms, which is the mental hospitals or psychiatric hospitals, mentally ill patients, and psychiatrists. All these terms are replaced, which is the updation in the Act of Indian Mental Health Act. Okay, so what is this second chapter? Second chapter deals about the establishment of central and state authorities for regulation and coordination of mental health services. So the government, central government, has established various authorities and various regulation for coordination of the mental health services. So that is what the second act explains. Coming to the third chapter gives us the guidelines for establishment and maintenance of the psychiatric hospitals and nursing homes. So various hospitals, okay, if you take India, there are various psychiatric hospitals and nursing homes. So these hospitals and nursing homes should have a common guidelines and common protocols how the mental hospital should be. Okay, what are the physical facility, how should be the environment, and what are the rules and regulations of the clients there to be followed, or the personals who are delivering the care. So all these things are being explained in the chapter 3, and also the license for the mental hospitals, the licensing for psychiatric and the nursing homes, psychiatric hospitals and nursing homes is being explained in the chapter 3 of Indian Mental Health Act. Coming to the chapter 4. So chapter 4 deals with the procedures for admission and detention in the psychiatric hospitals or nursing homes. So how the mentally ill client should be admitted in the hospital. What are the different ways of getting admitted in the psychiatric hospital. So we are going to see this chapter 4 is going to explain about the different types of the psychiatric it's going to explain about the different types of admission. So first type of admission is the voluntary admission. So voluntary admission, what do you mean by voluntary? It is the decision taken by the client himself that he or she is having a mental problem or a mental illness, and he or she wants to get treatment for such kind of illness. So the client or the patient himself will decide that he is having a mental issue and he requires the help. Okay, he needs to get and approach the hospital for the treatment. So he will decide, and that is the decision of the client to be admitted. If the client is a minor, okay, so if the client is a minor, the guardian or the parents can reach out to the hospital. So what is the mode of entry of such a kind of admission? Request by major or guardian of the minor for admission to the medical officer. So first they have to request the admission to a mental hospital by the medical officer. So medical officer will make an inquiry. They will do inquiry. They will examine the patient. They will examine the reports. They will do all the inquiry by 24 hours. Within 24 hours of request for the admission. After the inquiry, okay, so the medical officer will decide whether the admission is required or not. If he is if he feels it is necessary that the patient has to be taken treatment in a psychiatric hospital, he will give the permission and the patient can get admitted in the hospital voluntarily. So voluntary admission is made. So that is the first type of the admission, voluntary admission. Coming to the second type of the admission, which is admission under special circumstances. So what is this admission under special circumstances? When the patient is not willing to get admitted voluntarily. Okay, so the relatives or the friends of the patient, okay, were very close to the patient, who are living with the patient. Such kind of people will recognize that he requires admission to the psychiatric hospital wherein he can be treated. So when the patient is unwilling or unable to make request for admission, the relative makes an application to the medical officer on behalf of the patient. So they will make the requisition to the medical officer that he or she or their relative or their friend requires a hospitalization. So the medical officer will make the inquiry within the 24 hours of the request. He will examine the patient, he will examine the reports, he will decide whether the patient requires the treatment in the psychiatric hospital or not. So based on the condition of the patient, the medical officer will give the permission and the patient will get admitted. Involuntarily, he will get admitted to the hospital. So this is the second type of admission, which is admission under the special circumstances. Coming to the third one, which is admission under the authority or under the order. So how is this part done? How is this type of admission done? So it is based on four types. Okay, we can say we have four subtypes of this admission under authority or the reception order. The first one is reception order on application. Second is reception order on production of a mentally ill person before magistrate. Reception order after inquest. Admission and detention of mentally ill prisoner. So we are going to see the first one, which is reception order on application. So application is made by the relative or friend to the magistrate. So when a patient is there at home or with them who requires a treatment, first what they are going to do is they will give an application, or the relative or the friend, family members, they're going to give an application to the magistrate. So the application should be supported by two medical certificates that the patient requires admission in the psychiatric hospital. As a proof, they have to submit two medical certificates. The magistrate will obtain the consent from the medical officer in charge of the mental hospital. So once the magistrate feels yes, he will verify the medical certificates and the need of admission to the mental hospital, he is going to take the consent from the medical officer of the particular psychiatric hospital. So once the medical officer gives a permission or gives a green signal, so the magistrate will give the permission to get admitted in the mental hospital. So admission under the reception order is made. So this is the reception order on application. Second under this is the reception order on production of a mentally ill person before a magistrate. So mentally ill patient exhibiting violent behavior which is detained by the police officer, the police officer will produce the mentally ill client to the court within 24 hours of detention, and the application is supported by two medical certificates. Then the magistrate will issue the order for the admission for receiving the patient. This is about the reception order on production of a mentally ill person before a magistrate. The third one is reception order after inquest. Inquest of a mentally ill patient by a district court. So district court will decide whether the person requires a treatment in the mental hospital. So in the interest of such person, district court will direct for the admission, and the admission is made. So next one is admission and detention of mentally ill prisoner. So a mentally ill prisoner, he may be admitted into mental hospital on order of the presiding officer or a court. So based on the presiding officer, they will decide whether the requirement is there for the admission of the mental patient of the client to the mental hospital, right? So what is this? So the next one is admission in emergencies. So there are situations when the client becomes violent, very violent and aggressive, is harmful to himself and to others. In those cases, the emergency admissions will be done. So again, in this particular type of the admission, they will be produced, the client will be produced to the magistrate, and within 24 hours of, within 24 to 72 hours of, inquiry, they will be admitting the patient to the mental hospital if the magistrate feels it is necessary. Next is temporary treatment order. So what is this temporary treatment order? Yes, so for some conditions, only certain, for some conditions, only temporary treatment will be required. So in those cases, the admission will be done for temporary order. Okay, admission, say for example, for 6 months. Okay, 6 months treatment. Okay, that is a temporary treatment order. Next is miscellaneous admission. What is miscellaneous admission? So, if there are mentally ill clients who are wandering, okay, we can say them as destitutes, or they are wandering on the street without any purpose. So, such a client, okay, they will be recognized by the police and or by the social worker. They will be recognized and they will be brought to the mental hospital. That is a miscellaneous type of the admission. So these are the various types of admissions which is explained in chapter 4 of the Indian Mental Health Act. So next is the chapter 5. What is this chapter 5 going to explain? It deals with the procedures to be followed for discharge of mentally ill persons. So it's going to explain about various discharge procedures. We are going to learn the different types of the discharge. So first one is discharge of a patient admitted under the special circumstances. So in the special circumstances, how the patient is admitted is, he will be admitted by the relative, involuntary admission we can say, by the relative or by the friend, whoever feels that the patient requires treatment. So they will request the medical officer to get admitted in the mental hospital. Here, a relative or a friend may make an application to the medical officer for care and custody of the patient. So here, the relatives or the friend, they may feel necessary that the patient can be given treatment in their own custody. So the discharge will be done in this special circumstance. The next type of discharge is discharge of patient admitted on reception order. So on the reception order, what is the mode of discharge? An applicant who feels that the patient has recovered from illness may make an application for discharge to a magistrate. So the applicant, whoever is applying, may feel that he or she, the client, can be discharged, that he is fit to be discharged. He can do the discharge process by applying to the magistrate. The certificate should accompany such as application from medical officer in charge of the psychiatric hospital. So we have to get a certificate from the medical officer that the client is fit to be discharged. So once the certificate is being produced to the magistrate, then the client can be discharged by the reception order. The next type of discharge is discharge of a patient admitted by the police. So in case when the police is doing the admission of the client to a mentally ill hospital, so he may be discharged by the family members who should agree in writing to take proper care of the client, and the medical officer in charge of the particular client should give the opinion that the patient is fit for discharge. This is about the discharge of a patient admitted by the police. Next is discharge of a mentally ill prisoner. So the hospital authorities have to report every 6 months about the condition of the client, and they have to give an order that he is fit to be discharged. So in those cases, the discharge will be done for a mentally ill prisoner. The hospital authorities have to report every 6 months about the patient's state of mind to the authority which had ordered detention. Yes, next one is the leave of absence. So what is this leave of absence? So this is a kind of a vacation which we can give for the client, a mentally ill client. Say we give a leave of about 60 days, okay, wherein the patient can go back to their home. Say for example, there is a festival or there is some kind of relatives who have come to their house. Okay, the patient can spend time with the family for about 60 days, but the relative or the family member, whoever takes the patient, should give in writing that they will take full custody of the patient. So they may be given the leave from the hospital to visit the family members. On application by a relative or other medical officer in charge of the patient, a bond which is duly signed stating the patient will be taken proper care and prevented from injury, leave of absence may be granted for maximum of 60 days. This is about the chapter 5. So moving on to chapter 6, which deals with a judicial inquiry regarding mentally ill person possessing property, their custody and management of property. So if the client or the mentally ill client is having a lot of, is having a lot of property, and he is not fit to take care of all those affairs, okay, financial affairs, then the guardianship will be given to take care of his property to his relative or to his family member, who will be taking care the custody of those property and who will be taking care of those various affairs, and they will be able to manage the property for the client. Next is chapter 7. So chapter 7 deals with ways and means to meet the cost and maintenance of mentally ill patients detained in the psychiatric hospitals or nursing homes. So when the client is having, when the client is admitted in the psychiatric hospital, they will be given the they have to be given the maintenance charges and everything. So they have to give the maintenance charge of the hospital. So this particular chapter 7, it explains about the various costs and expenses of the client that the client has to meet when he is there in the mental hospital. Next one is chapter 8. It is the latest addition to the Act that contains a very novel and explicit provision for the protection of human rights of mentally ill persons. So here we are going to, the Act has given the various ways wherein the mentally ill clients' rights should be strengthened, right? Okay, so in this particular Act, the rights of the patients will be protected. So the patient will be given, should be given the respect and the dignity. He should not be given any kind of a punishment physically and mentally. So the patients will be secure and protected. The second thing is these kinds of clients may be used for research activities. So the permission can be given for the purpose of research only if the research is going to bring some kind of a benefit to the client, or and also the consent should be taken. If the patient is under the voluntary admission, the consent from the patient can be taken voluntarily from the patient, or if it is involuntary kind of admission. So in those cases, the permission for the research activity should be taken by the guardians. Okay, and also no communication to be intercepted. So in terms, patients can get calls, or patients can get some letters when they are there in the mental hospital. Such any kind of communication should not be intercepted by the by the medical professional. So this is how certain basic rights of the patient can be protected, which is given in the Act, Mental Health Act of Chapter 8. So moving on to chapter 9. So chapter 9 deals with the procedure followed for the establishment and maintenance of mental hospitals and nursing homes. So we are going in there, and they have given a set of how the rules and regulations for setting up of mental hospital or psychiatric nursing homes. So this is explained in chapter 9. The last chapter is chapter 10. It is going to explain and give the clarification pertaining to certain procedures to be followed by a medical officer in charge of the psychiatric hospitals or nursing home. So there are various procedures which can be done on the clients in the mental hospitals. For example, the electroconvulsive therapy or any kind of a diagnostic study. So in those cases, the client has to be protected. So it gives the clarification as to how those procedures has to be followed by the medical officer. This is about the Indian Mental Health Act of 1987, which has got the chapters, chapter 1 to chapter 10. And it's very much important and necessary for nurses to have these knowledge about this particular act when she's delivering the care for the client. So we're going to see at last what are the nursing implications, right? It will help the nurse to guide the patient and the relatives in matters of rights of the patient. So when it comes to, nurse is the one who is going to be there with the patient for a longer period of time. Right, for 24 hours, there are nurses who are delivering the care to the patients, and when there are many kind of queries which comes up. Okay, she is the one who has to guide the client. She is the one who is going to guide the relatives or the guardians about what are the rights of the patient, how she can protect the client. So this is one of the very important responsibility we can say of a nurse. So second thing is delivering the quality care, quality of care delivery. Right. So what is this? When she knows about the client, when she knows that these are the laws to be followed, even the quality of delivery what we give is also very important that we can keep in an effective way. The third one is the decision making, ethical decision making. So here it is very much important that the decision from the client as well as from the part of the nurse will happen hand in hand. Okay, there should be a collaboration between what the decision is made for the benefit of the client, for the care of the client, the decision from the patient relatives as well as the nurse. They should collaborate together and they should have a good interpersonal relationship so that the complete benefit will be given to the client. This is about the Indian Mental Health Act, which has replaced the Indian Lunacy Act of 1912 because of reason for improving the delivery of care and to protect the rights of mentally ill patients. So these are the various things that chapters that comes under this particular Indian Mental Health Act. Hope you all have understood. Good day. Thank you.